as I have a couple, basically my own little idea of a housing policy. I want to run by and just see what these kind of people here, how these people respond to it. I have my own housing strategy. It's called the 2 boots strategy. You need 1 boot to get everything that's in the way of people setting up their own housing, creating their own housing co-ops, their own co-housing, anything like that. Just give it the boot out of the way. And then the second boot is in the asses of the present social housing tenants themselves to get off of their asses and avail themselves of that opportunity instead of just sit back and let everybody else do everything for them. Because it's been, the reasoning behind this is we've been doing a lot of study about how social housing gets done in just about every other place on the planet, at least every industrialized country. What they've invariably found is that when they try to make housing for people, you end up with this loathsome, squalid bureaucracy, just like we've got in Toronto. And finally, the only way to get out of this is to require tenant management, self-management, real self-management. The only thing that works. This creeps at Toronto housing must never be allowed to put another brick on top of another. There must never be another stick of housing put up anywhere until somebody knows how it's going to be run when it's finished. There's no point to just throwing housing up, throwing people in it, and then just walking away from the whole thing. How's it going to be run? How's it going to be maintained? You know, how is it going to work? Okay?
Yep.
Good afternoon. My name is Susan Gapka. I'm with the Rainbow Health Network. I chair the Trans Health Lobby Group. And I think I'm going to take a bit of what I heard from the panel and then bring a recommendation forward. On number 4 here on, apparently they'd like to ask a specific question going into these things. I'm never too happy about that. But number 4 is, what creative new ideas could improve the current housing system? And what I heard was racial, ethnic discrimination, social, economic discrimination, gender or sex, a need for that type of analysis. So what I'm hearing from this, from the panel, is an equity lens implemented in the development of housing. And on that equity lens, I'm going to put on my Rainbow Health Network QB hat, is around amending the Ontario Human Rights Code to include gender identity as a protected ground. In the year 2000, the Ontario Human Rights Code recommended to the government that gender identity be amended, and yet, what is it, 2009, July? And yet the government hasn't acted on this. So with your support, we can bring those messages to Queen's Park. In the realm of housing, I mean, human rights codes protects in 3 specific areas around the use of facilities. For example, if I wanted to use the washroom here or the restaurant down the street, I would know that I had some protection if I was protected, explicitly protected, because we are protected in more invisibly under the grounds of sex and under the grounds of disability. But I'd like to see, we'd like to see, specific enumerated visible grounds. Around employment, if we had protection, we might be able to secure more employment so we could afford this incredible cost of housing. And where else does the Human Rights Code protect individuals? In accommodation, in housing. And that's, so I suggest that that is relevant to this conversation going into the sessions next week. I have postcards, I'll hand them out, I have petitions, but thank you for listening. I'd appreciate any support from the panel or people in the audience next week and in the future as we take this to the government.
Probably the best way to actually provide housing is through housing allowances, and to simply use that as a means of subsidy. There's no point necessarily worrying about things like how the housing actually gets built or provided, whether it's public or private. Those are not the issues. The issue is the economy is going downhill and it's no longer possible to live the same standard of living that anybody used to have. Everybody is going to be worse off, rich or poor, but we'd like it not to get too bad for the poorest people. I mean, that's the reason why we give out either income or housing to some people. We're basically making some choices as to who's getting more of a decline in income than others and who we want to buffer. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if that's the basic issue, there's no point having a debate over the supply of housing, although obviously the government can do something in that area. But it's pretty obvious that it's mainly a question of, do we want to provide some income to people so that some people can get some things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get. And obviously, in general, we do want to do that. So the simplest way to do that is through the housing allowances. Now, I don't think it makes any sense anymore to talk about percentages of income. The economy does not remain constant over the years. We're not comparing the present to the past. We're comparing the future if we do some things better or do things right, to the future if we do things badly. That's the comparison. There's no comparison to the past. The past is over. We're poorer than we were in the past. We're not going back to that. All of those past comparisons are before modern technology and environmental destruction. We don't have the same ability to maintain it. We've already destroyed a large part of our wealth, basically. That's a fact. Unless we start reversing technology, we're not going to get back to previous levels of incomes or previous percentages of incomes. What we're talking about in the future is, do we go to people paying 80, 90, or 100% of their income on housing, 80, 90, or 100%, if we do things wrong, or can we stabilize it at around 50%? That's the real choice. If we start to make the right demands and stop pretending that the economy hasn't been destroyed by technology, and stop pretending that there isn't something we have to do that's really different, then maybe we can fix the situation well enough that people can afford housing with 50% of their income. If we keep pretending that the economy is just as good as it was in the past, then we'll never make those changes, and eventually the economy will get so bad that people won't get housing even with 100% of their income.
I just wanted to make a comment about having been myself at, I think, 25 of the poverty reduction consultations. Just that I really do understand, and I think that this is a fantastic opportunity to be generating some ideas going into it. But please just go in with an open mind, and there are people there who want to listen. So the idea of going to tables where you want to go to and stuff makes sense to some degree. But just a reminder that some of the best, and I say this truly from experience, that some of the best ideas came out of two people who'd never worked together before or didn't work on the same issues, having a discussion and trying to figure it out together. So there's ways to generate good ideas that go into the strategy with people who have good intentions. So just that sort of balancing that caution out on both sides. But totally I understand that you don't want to be sort of put into a situation that you're forced to talk about something that you don't want to, that you don't know about or that your expertise is not in, but just finding that right balance and how you do it. So, and this is a great opportunity to get some of those ideas out generally. So, congratulations.